We've been exploring for the past few weeks surrendering and acceptance. And I'd like to continue this conversation this week. I believe very strongly that it is probably the most important aspect to our meditation practice. And the reason for that is because all that we are wishing to accomplish within our meditative experience is very much hinging or reliant on this ability. And when we start to look at something like surrender or acceptance, we have to frame it in a way that is not in a deficit or a negative. Oh, I have to surrender to this, or I have to accept my life the way that it is. But rather seeing it on the positive side of the spectrum, that what is it that you are surrendering to? What is it that you are ultimately accepting? And we want to start to look at very closely the experiences that we have, whether it be positive or negative, and the sensation which exists within that experience. The sensations, plural. Because there is multi, isn't there? It's never just one thing that we are feeling, it's a layered effect. And what we want to identify with from this perspective of meditation is that which is conducive to our meditative practice, that which is resting in an element of elation, grounded, clear, understood, flowing. And that's ultimately what we want to be accepting as being a reality, that aspect of our experience. And through this acceptance that is a part of our reality, that is potentially even our reality, we can start to surrender to the intelligence which exists there. And that's very literal. And we can very clearly start to reflect back in towards ourselves and see, well, whether or not we do that. Not as a judgment, not as you got to work harder, but rather noticing, do I do that? And it's a simple yes or no. And if it's no, well, this is really exciting. Because what begins to happen is a deeper exploration of the sensations which you feel and the authenticity of those sensations, meaning the direct correlation to who you are and where you're going with all of this. There must be a direct correlation within that as to who you are and where you're going. Often, just before this deepening of our exploration, we are really attaching ourselves to ideas of who we are, projections of who we are, which tend to pull us away from this streamlining of where we're going. And this is incredibly evident within the practice of meditation. This word practice, we also want to take quite literally. Even though the meditative experience is spontaneous and it's natural, in order to get to this place where the spontaneity can occur, takes a little bit of practice. What we're practicing is what aspects of this expressive tool that we call mind and all of its parts that make up its communication are we actually going to listen to? What part of that, if any of it? And this keen, developing individual and the relationship which is growing between the elements that make up who we are and the experiencer of that begins to create a feedback loop, which is relating ideally on a constant, back into your ability to soften the hold that we have on the direction itself for our meditation, meaning from a cognitive, focused concentration, using all that we have in order to achieve it, but rather softening all of the effort and relying on the deepest, most natural development that we have. So in our life, somewhere, we have to create a trust bond, because really that is one of the major elements to succeeding in this calming or developing the peaceful mind, enabling to harness the energy and then move forward. We have to be able to trust. We must be able to trust ourselves and the universe that we live in. Even if we don't trust, at first glance, any of the people around us, we should ideally trust ourselves and the universe that we live in. And I think that it's proven to us time and time again the intelligence that actually is exuding from this universe. The orchestration of all the detail that magically works at once, I think, is really all we need. But then we want to have more proof and look deeper and have a greater access to this trust, which is enveloped within every aspect of the micro experiences that you occur within this universe, you directly. So in every moment of every day, we are actually gaining this opportunity to develop trust, to develop acceptance, to develop surrender to that which is the most powerful element of who we are, the most intelligent, the most clear, the most understood and understanding. And the reason why we want to focus so much attention there is because the topic that we are looking at is one that is found from the inner landscape. This inner landscape is for a large part uncharted territory, other than the minimal exploration that we've done from the external side in the formal sciences, and the exploration that you have done within yourself, personally. So now we want to give this exploration that we are doing personally some parameters, some guidelines, and some direction that is leading the individual towards this connection to an authenticity of self that at first is generally only met in the time of meditation, because it's the most quiet and the least distracting. And that trust bond that is formed there, we start to now bring back up into the surface levels of our life. And that trust that we develop there, we start to enable the discernment, which we've been talking about also for the past 2 weeks, of what is language, what is content that is actually for us, which is current, and what content and language that is actually no longer needed. Now, that which is no longer needed, you must completely surrender. You must accept the fact that you can do it. You must accept this fact, that it is possible to let go of that which is no longer needed. And you can gain assistance from whatever modality you wish. But ultimately, the best means of achieving this equanimity and balance from the inside is through the activity of meditation. So for thousands of years, they've been developing it, researching, talking about it. And one of the very key points within the developmental research that's gone into meditation is that whatever is actively engaging within your mind, meaning that which you can see, that which you could write a journal about, can be resolved through the practice of meditation. And the reason why is because meditation is asking for an absolute still point, a quietness. And within that absolute stillness is still the dynamic expression, but it's put to a place where it is now on its most subtle. Which means everything, all of this content which exists on the inside, must follow that lead of becoming quiet and becoming subtle. So that which is no longer needed, which you have decided already that you no longer want to engage with, is then put into the cleansing, the kriya of your meditation. And each time you sit, it's becoming lighter and lighter and lighter, unless you choose otherwise. And this is very, very, very useful to recognize that if there is a persistent thought or an emotion or a state, it is because you are supporting that. And it might not be consciously decided that I want this to be here, but as we've been discussing, we're made up of incredible layers. So, anything that is put into this experience of meditation must follow the same guidelines of becoming subtle to a place of no longer disturbing one's own mind. As it becomes increasingly more subtle, it's easier to let go of because it has less pull, less hold, because it's becoming so incredibly subtle in its nature. And it's realizing that, oh, wait a minute, there's actually something deeper for me to connect to. This transmutation. So this shift into something else completely, into a new formed energy. So that which is seen as maybe negative is now all of a sudden put into a neutral position. And that neutral position now has an option to take on the positive, which is that undercurrent that we've been talking about. That undercurrent. And that undercurrent is accessed through this accepting of the fact that it is there and the surrendering to its intelligence. This intelligence is connected to that of our environment, both inner and outer, and the universe that we live in. So in effect, as we stabilize our own psychology, and that's what you're doing, you're stabilizing your own psychology, we begin to see our very active role, our very important role within our environment inwardly, our environment outwardly, and how our psychology affects those environments. We further begin to see how we are important in the overall universal play. And the whys and the hows ideally are experienced directly, in simplicity, not in grandiose saving the world, but in the simplicity of you sitting in this room and being an incredibly good human. This is value added into the universal orchestra, or your truth, for that matter. Grounding and standing into your truth is an incredible movement forward. The psychology that we are developing and balancing is then the how we express that truth, how we are that good human. The how-to. And the simplicity within the how-to is just to stay in accordance to that energetic vibration, which means the sensation which you feel, which is continuously orientating yourself towards that deeper meaning. That trust bond, which is connecting you, meaning that authentic expression of who you are, the one that's having all the questions, to a source which is defined by you just for this moment. It doesn't have to be end-all be-all God, but it's a source that you can understand right now. That's all you need. The simplicity of it, the small steps, And that makes it much more conducive for us to become embodied with this meditative knowledge. The embodiment means that you can more easily live it through, and that it is influencing all aspects of this human. So, right, we understand that we have a body, we have a breath, we have a mind. We have this X factor of quantum reality, which is dynamic stillness, and they're all working together. So on the other side of that, to realize that those same elements, those same systems, are actually producing sensation, which is feeding our ability to connect to that self and to connect to that source. So it is the agent which is expressing it, yes, that sensation of connection to source, but it's also the exact same agent which is taking us there. Just like in a sense where yoga is the path, the practice, but also yoga is the destination. Same idea. So your nervous system and the sensations which you feel are going to be expressing that place, but also guiding you there. So it's not ever very far, which means it's the decisions that we are making which are leading us away, if that is a feeling that you have. And it's the decisions that we're making which is leading us closer to identifying that core experience. So this is why we want to look at psychology as a prime importance within your meditative practice. But we do not ideally want to look at psychology from the perspective of mind first. And we talk about this often. But it's a loop that we must create strength around. We actually want to examine our psychology from the experience of the body, the experiencer of the body first. Much less daunting and much more powerful, because now we can anchor the mind into the experience of the body, so that then the mind feels safe enough to look at our psychology instead of running in the opposite direction or doing a fancy move to diminish the intensity of that psychology. So the body does us a huge favor, and it will let us know if we feel anxious at that moment. It'll let us know if we feel angry at that moment or scared at that moment. But it also shows us the elation, the balance, the strength, the understanding is all felt through the nervous system. So as we get these messages through our nervous system that this is anxious and this is scared, at the exact same time, we're getting this message of how to work with it. So no longer do we want to block that, we actually want to open it up. Because we've already defined and we're very clear with the movement of, oh yes, this is a psychology piece that I don't want to look at. But now we must strengthen the aspect of this nervous system that says, here's the solution. Here's the solution. And we must get to this place where we can start to accept the fact that we have the solution. You have the solution. And surrender to that intelligence. So that then if it was a seesaw, if this is making sense, that which is solution is becoming stronger and more weighted than that which is the challenge. So we want that to outweigh it. So that then the challenge is becoming lighter and lighter because of our method, your method, the meditation's method of taking something which is strong and dense and powerful, no matter what it is, and allowing it to just dissolve and become neutral. So there's no longer any judgment, there's no longer any good or bad, there just is the simplicity of your direct experience that you're having now. And then we accept this now. And it becomes easy over time. And we know that everything becomes easier over time. We learned that when we first started riding a bike. Everything is of that same simple nature. Energy put towards is then development and growth. If we do not put that energy towards it, it will not develop or grow. So meditation is about consistency And the topic that we're looking at is your own psychology. When we close our eyes, there's no longer any distractions, which is great. We anchor into our body, see and accept this simple truth of positivity, so that then we can just simply work with that which is coming towards us, unabided by rains, not filtered. It needs to be real. Let it be real. The first step of your meditation and your last step of meditation should always begin with comfort. Should always be comfort. We should always have that comfort piece. Because if we are comfortable with ourselves, with our body, with what we see, with our mind, we actually open these two doors. So that which is the in point and that which is the out point. That which is explained is in the middle. It says what it needs to say, we understand it, now we get to move on. So we want to push through in the sweetest and kindest of ways, move through the density of the mind, which is based on the actions and activities of your day. We want to move through all of that unbound, so that then the information has a chance to move out and leave us with quiet. Leave us with the dynamic qualities that exist within your inner stillness. What stimulates that moving through is your breathing, which is felt by your nervous system, which is connected to your mind. So now the inhale-exhale rhythms within your breathing enables you to move through that stiffness, move through that density, move into increased spaciousness. So we don't feel so claustrophobic around our mind experience and those thoughts and those challenges of our day, but rather it expands us. It expands us in our world, your individual space, your personal space, even if you want to look at it that way, grows in greater comfort. So then self-esteem goes up, ability increases, forward movement gains start to happen on all levels of your human experience. Because of the simple fact that that which is engaged within an active state of your mind, so you are consciously able to connect to the thought of it, can be resolved through meditation. But as always, should not trust me. You should definitely connect to my words and say, yes, I think this guy might be onto something. But we must then take this information and apply it, not from the perspective of its complexity, all this information we've been talking about, but from its simplicity. The simplicity is the technique itself of meditation. And anything that you heard and it now has registered and retained inside. That's what we want to work with. And then as you move along within your meditation and as you keep coming, the pieces just start to click in one at a time, becoming stronger and stronger, which is forging that trust bond, which is then turning on this acceptance piece and this surrender to the very intelligence which has always been speaking to you since you were a little child. Same. I don't believe it's ever been different. And that's really profound. So now maybe we've been developing an unconscious relationship, but still developing it with this intelligence, this voice or this sense, this feeling inside that's been with us since we were little. So now if we can just shift ourselves slightly to see, this can actually enhance if I become a little bit more conscious with the relationship. I'm really interested to see how it will flourish. So what does that mean? Well, I guess that means that you could take the person who you care for the most and use them as the model as to how you're going to connect back into that intelligence, into that peace which has been guiding you? And how would you treat that peace? If you could safely say that maybe you have not been listening to the utmost of your ability or trusting to the utmost of your ability, what would happen first? Would you say, oh, hey, hi, I'm Rameen. We haven't really talked much, but I'd love to sit down for a good 10 minutes with my eyes closed and get to know you. Is it like that? Or is it a completely different way that you so choose? But the reality is that we want to develop that trust and treat this element of ourselves with the level of kindness, with the level of respect that we show to the external individual which we care for the most in this world. And in that, we start to create a profound ability. And you might ask, well, what is this profound ability? Well, it's unique. It's unique to every single person who's sitting in this room. You have a profound ability. And I'm not sweet talking, it's just the simple truth. You have this profound ability that is adding to the environment, inwardly, outwardly, in the universe that we live in. It's just like that. Why else are we here? Why? All these planets spinning and doing. We don't know why, but we know that we're significant. Even if you tell yourself, I'm not very significant, in the next breath, you're like, I'm the most important thing in this room. So in that, there is a level of understanding of what I'm saying with this significance. You are incredibly significant. For no other reason than you sit at the center of this universe. It revolves around you. No matter how we look at this, it is you, because you are the observer. Even if we take in a piece of information that another scientist discovered, it is you observing that. And you are at the center of this universal experience. Take you out of the equation, there's no longer this universe for you to consciously observe. So, in effect, at that moment in time, it does not exist for you in this way. So you are the center. To realize that, to accept that, to surrender to that, to ultimately develop the relationship so you can trust that. Any questions? About anything.
Can you tell us a little bit about asana siddhi? Oh, sorry. Hey, I just want to. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I was just wondering, like, if you can just talk us a little bit about the asana siddhi.
Like Siddhasana, the
Yeah.
posture.
Yeah,
The
that means the
meditation
ability
seat.
to sit into the folded legs or in the Padmasana for
Yeah.
longer times.
The opening of the body is really needed in order to sit into the more advanced postures for meditation. But the more advanced postures for meditation is not necessary to connect to a meditation practice. The opening of the body is a whole method which is so important, and I encourage everyone to do it, everybody to do it. But it's a method which is designed to create clearer communication before even meditation begins. So in this clear communication is through the nervous system, and then a more subtle communication method called the nadis. And the nervous system and the nadis need room in order to communicate freely. So this room is found within the myofascial tissue. So this is the encasing or wrapping that happens throughout the entire body. It's basically one long, big membrane that wraps everything. And its related muscular system, skeletal system. So the reason for those deeper postures, like Siddhasana or Padmasana, is so that then we can feel balance. The more balance we can feel and equanimity we can feel on our sit bones, and if we're able to lock ourselves within the posture with comfort, meaning the body is not in an ache or a pain, it's actually at home within that seat, then we can sit for prolonged periods of time. So that prolonged period of time, meaning 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, up to 12 or 24 hours. So it's a marker within a specific focus of practice found within the yoga, through India, through Tibet, through Nepal, that enables this higher form of mind to really be present and ground. So it's the deeper states of meditation. So this is going even past all the psychology stuff that we were talking about. I can go into great detail. And it's really good and useful. But step one is to really just open up the body to a huge extent so that then you can feel all the subtleties that happen.
I had another question about the Nadi Shuddhi, Shuddhikaran, because it seems like I'm getting these spiritual experiences of maybe 5,000-year-old guru.
Mm-hmm.
He's appearing in the dream. Sometimes he's coming in front of my eyes, and sometimes it's very overwhelming because I don't have a physical kind of a teacher that I can communicate. But
this is astral plane teacher.
Yeah.
Yogis.
Dattatreya.
So this is a blessing.
Yeah.
And what to do with it is to then live in accordance to the best of your ability to balance. So eating, sleeping, exercise, breathing techniques, and meditation.
Okay, so recently, there was a thing that he told me was the Durga Kavach, basically. Like he started telling me, and when I'm reciting the Gayatri Mantra, the left channel, basically, I don't know what's this happening, but the whole left hand starts moving. So I think there is some kind of a blockage or something that's just doing that.
Completely. When that current starts to move through the body, this is in effect clearing out those nadi channels, the nervous system, and removing blockages, because to reach those spiritual heights of absorption, samadhi states, enlightenment, all of that conversation, the channels need to be free.
Right. So is there a easy way, means kind of doing a nadi clearing?
Yes.
In yoga, is there an easy way to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
The easiest way is through pranayama. That's the easiest way, combined with diet, combined with a little bit of movement. Not a lot, a little bit of movement. But the primary focus is your breathing and diet. Because the cleaner, more simple the diet, the easier it is for the body to remove the toxin.
Right, so the diet is vegetarian then?
The diet is usually vegetarian, depending on what tradition you look at.
Okay.
But what we want to look at more so than vegetarianism is high levels of nutrition with simplicity and easy to digest.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people in the West that eat meat, but if you can eat meat, even in India there's a lot of people that eat meat, but if you can eat meat once every 2 weeks, a small portion, then that's actually a great amount for your body to optimize its experience. But at the same time, it's enabling that more dense fuel experience to move out of the system, and then you can replenish the body with plant nutrients also.
Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, that answers. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
I was just wondering if you could speak on, I've heard other teachers or modalities speak on not necessarily not meditating, but having meditation being a thing that takes you away from not the real world, but your involvement in it. And that natural gratitude that needs to be found in the moment. At some point, you have to do it in the moment. And so, to meditate, and you're safe in your room, you're safe, but then you have to go into the world. I haven't felt that through your meditation, but in past meditations I put them down because it was actually, I felt less. So that ability to go into a meditation to hide, in one sense.
Well, maybe that is just speaking to your developing maturity. That you're beginning to recognize the simple fact that wherever you are is the moment. So whether you are safely tucked away in your room or engaging with conflict, it is still in the moment. And what's beautiful about meditation is it relates us back so deeply into the experience of the moment, void of the story, that when we come across the storyline, we are so sufficiently understood and secure within ourselves that we can see the story for what it is. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Shall we sit? Ideally, we always start from this experience of comfort, which speaks directly to the body, which is enabling us to become grounded in the elements of embodiment. Using your own anatomy and biology, chemistry, begin to access your inner environment, the space of the environment, and then ultimately the path which is moving you towards meditation. Keeping the eyes closed, let's bring full deep breaths into the body. Keeping the eyes closed, bring your gaze into the space just there in front of you. And know that when I'm saying in front of you, I mean the moment you realize that you're looking. Just beyond that. That's where we want to place the gaze. We want to maintain the connection to the quality of space uninterrupted by any thought. So we make that choice and then flex the inner mind muscles. For 1 minute, starting now. Keeping the eyes closed, soften the gaze. And very slowly, gently, without rushing, allow the eyes to open. As always, we do not want to measure our abilities within our meditation practice or whether or not it was good or bad. We don't want to base that on the amount of thought that you have, because potentially you may be having a constant stream of thought within your meditation for some time. So what we have to gauge it on is our ability to sit consistently, meaning multiple days in a row, multiple weeks in a row, and how good it makes us feel. Because more and more we're starting to understand how meditation affects the body first, the biology and the chemistry, and then it influences and affects the thought stream second. And it's all the work of experiencing meditation and recognizing what an incredible good job the body is doing, which is meaning you with your meditation practice, that enables the mind to actually begin to surrender the thought and accept that there's much more than those particular wheels of experience. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste.
If you ever have any questions for Rameen, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be able to curate a broadcast that is more in alignment with your genuine inquiries about anything and everything and meditation. You can email me, Haji, and I will ask your questions on your behalf anonymously. You can reach me at info@sattvaonline.com. That's info@sattvaonline.com. And I'll make sure to let you know as soon as your questions were answered on air. Thank you.